These are the best tires for the Jeep Gladiator, in my opinion. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to robmotivejt. And that's right, I'm going to tell you what tires are the best tires for the Jeep Gladiator. You know, I've had a few different sets of tires on my trucks, not all on the Jeep Gladiator, but I've had Tonneau Ridge Grapplers, I've had Goodyear Duratracs, I've had and have BF Goodrich KO2s, of course, the stockers that come with everyone, the all seasons, which, by the way, from a ride quality and noise standpoint, I do believe the all seasons are the best that you can get, but they don't look very good. And how capable are they in different conditions? You know, all seasons are designed exactly for that, for all seasons and really not all things. They don't do anything great, but they do a lot of different things well. And then, as I mentioned, the appearance, they just don't look as aggressive as the more aggressive aftermarket versions. So I've had, as I mentioned, the Tonneau Ridge Grapplers. They were okay, but in wet conditions like rain or even light snow, things like that, they weren't too great. They always broke free. They didn't give me a lot of good traction when I really wanted it. Now, off-road, I'm sure they're probably better. They're probably one of the better ones that you can choose. There are more aggressive, of course, but not too great and kind of noisy. And speaking of noise, I'm going to be quiet for a second because we're on a nice smooth road. You can kind of hear what it sounds like here. Obviously, you're going to get some sound out of them. And of course, the Jeep Gladiator is like a big giant rectangle on wheels, so it grabs a lot of wind. But they're the Falcons, by the way, which is what I'm running right now, are probably the most quiet. Now, next up, I had the Goodyear Duratracs. They were probably the second best of any tire that I've had. Not quite as aggressive looking as the others, but very capable, much better traction, I think, on slippery or wet surfaces, wet roads. Not quite as good as what I have right now, but still not too bad. And price-wise, a little expensive, but not horrible. By the way, the Tonneau Ridge Grapplers, I think, were the most expensive of all that I've had. Next up, let's talk about the KO2s, the BF Goodrich KO2s. And if you pay attention to everybody out there, it seems to me that the KO2s are probably, if not the most popular, one of the most popular tires that people get. Now, the KO2s, they have a nice aggressive look. They have a great deep tread pattern. But because of that deep tread pattern, they're noisier on the road. Now, they're also probably one of the best off-road. Because of that more aggressive stance, the more aggressive tread pattern, they just grab better. And I think that's really what the KO2s are probably more designed for, is off-road use. You know, obviously they can be used on-road. I mean, that's what I'm doing with them on my Toyota Tacoma, but I'm not as hip about them as I am about what I'm currently running on the Jeep Gladiator. And speaking of that, let's get to it. These are the best tires, in my opinion, that you can have on the Jeep Gladiator, and those are the Falcon Wild Peak AT3Ws. They have a nice aggressive look to them, not quite as aggressive probably as the Ridge Grapplers or the KO2s, but they still look pretty darn tough on the truck. And after all, depending on what you're using the truck for, that's one of the things that we're really looking for, isn't it? Something a little tougher looking, something a little more aggressive, and something a little bit wider and taller, I guess. At least that's what I look for. I believe, and I'll put a picture up at the end, these are a 285/70 R17, a very common size for most trucks out there, I think. Gladiators, Tacomas, probably Rangers, and everything else. That's because they do look so good, and it's a really good fit for the truck, I think. Now, as far as traction and comfort go, with traction in the rain, I haven't had any issues with them. You know, with the others that I mentioned, one of the biggest indicators, I guess, of traction in wet conditions for me is when you're taking a turn. You know, if you're at a light like I am right now, it's wet outside, you're going to get on the gas, and I don't mean nail it like you're trying to go to a house fire or something, but you're going to get on the gas, and they gave a little bit, the other ones. I've never had the Falcon Wild Peaks do that. They've never lost traction for me in any kind of conditions, which for me now is primarily rain. And let me tell you, when it rains in South Texas, it rains a lot. Never any issues with them, no loss of control, no loss of traction. As far as the sound, I'm on a little bit rougher road right now. You could hear earlier, we're driving on Falcon Wild Peaks, but here's what they sound like on a rougher road. I mean, you can hear them, I think, but it's kind of hard to differentiate between the tires themselves and just the wind noise from driving the Jeep Gladiator. So not too bad there. They're not going to hurt your ears, I don't think. As far as comfort, driving on them, you know, they feel good. I'm not feeling every bump in the road. And the Gladiator, in all honesty, is pretty darn comfy anyway. You know, with the suspension setup that comes on the truck, and I am running stock, it's pretty smooth. And with these tires combined with that, they feel pretty good. I don't feel a lot of the road. They don't have that harder, rougher compound that some of the others have. I think the KO2s that I have right now, probably on the Tacoma, are probably the second hardest tire that I've had. The worst, by far, were the Ridge Grapplers. Those things were firm. You could feel everything on the road. I didn't like that a lot about those. And don't get me wrong, these are all relatively minor things. I mean, to the nth degree. If you pay attention to these things, if you're sensitive to it, then you're going to experience them. But if you're not so sensitive and you don't really catch a lot of these things when you're out driving around, maybe you've got the steering or the radio cranked up, maybe you just don't feel those kind of things, then the others probably aren't going to bother you too much. But you will notice if you pay attention to them. As far as price goes, I'd say they're probably maybe second or third, probably third highest. The KO2s are up there, the Ridge Grapplers are up there. These are probably next down below those two. Maybe in line with the Goodyear Duratrax, probably somewhere in the same range. The other thing seems to be availability these days. You know, I've been looking around a little bit because I've been thinking of putting something else on my Santa Cruz. Maybe a Falcon Wild Peak. Actually, it would be a Falcon Wild Peak. And I haven't had any problems with availability. You know, I've looked at a couple of the others, and it's probably because of their popularity. They seem to be out of stock in different sizes at a lot of places, at least in my area. So you can get them, and that's important. If you need a tire and you're not just changing them out for aesthetics or vanity, they're out there. You can find them. They're pretty easy to get. If they're not in stock at your tire store, probably within a couple of days at the most. So anyway, out of all of those that I mentioned, the Falcon Wild Peak AT3Ws are the best in my opinion. If you drive a lot on the pavement like I do, perfectly comfortable, but still capable off-road if you need them to be. Leave a comment, let me know if you've experienced different tires, maybe none of the ones that I mentioned. Which ones have you found to be the best? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Rob Motive, all about Toyota Tacomas, and Rob Motive MT, all about mini trucks, currently the Hyundai Santa Cruz. Check them out, and if you're interested, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.